I have worked out how the Championship table will finish if all of the remaining matches are the same result as the reverse fixture from earlier in the season. And let me just say, there are a few surprises in here. Now, this is by no means a prediction of how I think the table will finish between now and the end of the season, but it is an interesting indication of how things could unfold using data from earlier in the season and how your team did in the reverse fixtures of the games you've still got to play. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. 300 likes would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump in. Unsurprisingly, coming in at the bottom of the table, it's still Rotherham with a measly 22 points come the end of the season. In real life right now, they're on 20 points, so based on the games they've got left and the outcome of the reverse fixtures, they pick up just 2 more points between now and the end of the campaign, and would therefore go down as the worst team in Championship history, certainly from a points perspective. This is where things get really interesting though. In 23rd place, it would be Blackburn Rovers, who would only pick up 3 more points in their remaining 8 matches and would be relegated with a measly 45 points to their name. Now, in real life, the threshold for survival is probably going to be a lot higher than this, looking at around about 50 points maybe, but based on this projected table, the barrier for survival will be significantly lower, especially if Blackburn's terrible run of form continues. And taking the last relegation spot, it's Huddersfield Town with 45 points. That's 6 points they're projected to pick up between now and the end of the season in their final 8 matches, based on the games they've got left and the outcome of those matches earlier in the season, would mean that Huddersfield would only win 8 matches all season. And if you do finish on 45 points by the end of the campaign, I think you're a certainty to be relegated. In 21st place and just avoiding the drop, it's Stoke City, finishing with 47 points based on their remaining fixtures. In real life, they're on 41 points right now, so by finishing on 47, that would mean they're only going to pick up 6 more points in their final 8 matches. In real life, I don't think 47 points will be enough to keep you up, but in this table projection, that would be enough to get them over the line. The same for Birmingham as well, based on their remaining fixtures, also projected to finish the season with 47 points. Now, Birmingham have sort of been forced into making this late managerial change with the health issues that have faced Tony Mowbray. They've therefore had to bring back Gary Rowett for the remainder of the campaign. From the outside looking in, feels like a sensible appointment, but the run of form there at Blues has been absolutely grim. And like we were just saying with Stoke then, in real life, I'm not convinced 47 points will keep you up, but in this table, that would be enough to get you over the line. In 19th place, we've then got Sheffield Wednesday. They've been in the bottom 3 for the entirety of the season, but based on their remaining fixtures, they do have enough to get over the line. Finish the campaign on 48 points, which would be enough for survival in this table prediction right here. Based on Sheffield Wednesday's remaining fixtures and the outcome of those games earlier in the campaign, Wednesday are going to pick up 9 more points between now and the end of the season, and in this eventuality, that would be enough for survival. 18th place, we've got QPR. QPR fans looking at that table, you've got to be pretty optimistic. Based on their remaining matches, they'd be projected to pick up 9 more points in their final 8 matches, which would get them over the line in this scenario, finishing the campaign with 49 points. Honestly, since Cifuentes has come in at QPR, they have been operating like a solid mid-table side. It's just been the fact of them playing catch-up from earlier in the campaign, but I'm sure every QPR fan would bite your hands off for an 18th placed finish right now. Based on their remaining games, it would be a reasonably solid finish for Millwall as well. They'd be projected to pick up 52 points this season. I think that would be enough to keep you up in real life, and in this eventuality as well, would be good enough for a comfortable 17th placed finish. I think for Millwall fans, this is now just a case of getting over the line and getting to the end of the season, and then maybe having a bit of a reset with that club in the summer. All the way up in 16th place is Plymouth Argyle. I'm sure Plymouth fans would absolutely snatch your hands off right now to finish 16th come the end of the season. Projected to finish the campaign with 52 points based on their remaining matches. And I mean, on paper, Plymouth do have some very winnable games coming up after the international break. The real, I suppose, sucker punch with them at the moment, though, is the form, the way that fan base and Foster haven't really taken to each other. It feels like there's a lot of tension there. The home form's obviously taken a slide recently as well. And when you get into that negative momentum, it doesn't always matter which fixture list you have to come, whether it is a favourable run or not. When you're in that bit of a rut, everything can just seem to go against you in those scenarios. But this should come as a bit of a confidence booster, surely, to Plymouth fans, that you definitely got it within your means to get over the line this season, based on the results you picked up earlier in the season against the teams you've still got to play. Based on the remaining matches that Watford have got to play this season, they pick up 8 points in their remaining 8 matches, so would average 1 point per game between now and the end of the campaign, and maybe under Tom Cleverley it would just be a case of a solid mid-table finish. In 14th place, of course, it's Bristol City. Are they now the most mid-table club in the Championship? I think that my side, Preston North End and Bristol City, have probably held that title for a good few years now, you know, but Bristol City, the epitome of mid-table in the Championship right now, and based on the remaining matches that they've got to come and those results earlier in the season, it would be another mid-table finish for them. This would represent a really strong finish to the season for Swansea, who, based on their remaining matches, are projected to finish the campaign in 13th place. It's been a bit of a rocky road for Swansea all season, but based on the matches they've got to come and the results in those games earlier in the season, Swansea would pick up 15 points in their remaining 8 games, which really would be a nice way to end the season, I'd say. Now, Sunderland have been on a massive slide recently in terms of results. Injuries piling up haven't helped. There's been a loss of momentum, a few managerial changes that obviously just haven't worked out. Despite all that, they're actually projected to finish the season really strongly. In their final 8 matches, they're projected to pick up 16 points if they match the results of those games from earlier in the season. Not quite sure I can see Sunderland doing that at the moment with the way things have been going, but that should come as maybe some signs of encouragement that maybe things could get better between now and the end of the season. Coming in 11th place, we've then got my side, Preston North End, only projected to finish on 65 points based on our remaining matches and the results of those games earlier in the season. Honestly, I think the position we're in the table right now, if we were to finish in 11th, that would be quite underwhelming. On the face of things, I do think we have some quite winnable games coming up, but that's been a real Achilles heel of Preston all season, and actually in our remaining 8 matches, we only picked up 9 points in those games earlier in the season against those same oppositions, so that will be a little bit of a concern right there. I do think if we are at our firing best between now and the end of the campaign, though, maybe we have the slightest of chances of sneaking in there, but it's going to be tough. I'm sure Cardiff fans would be quite happy with a top 10 finish at this stage. They're projected to just about sneak in there with a slightly better goal difference than Preston come the end of the season, also finishing on 65 points based on the remaining matches that they've got to come. Hopefully, for their sake, they manage to just get that South Wales derby defeat out of their system as soon as possible. Have Middlesbrough left things too late for a proper playoff push? I think that's probably the case, but going off their remaining fixtures and how they fared in those games earlier in the campaign, this says that they'll at least have a decent stab at it after the international break. 67 points won't be enough to get you into the top 6 this season, but it at least does move Borough up a few places, and a finish of 9th would be marginally better than where they currently sit in the table. This is where things get really interesting in terms of the playoff race, though. Coming in 8th place, it's Hull City, who would miss out on the playoffs with 70 points based on the remaining matches that they've got to play this season. Hull have got a game in hand on Norwich right now, but they'd only pick up 12 points between now and the end of the campaign if they were to match the results of their remaining matches. That last playoff spot will be incredibly close, but going off the data, Hull may just miss out. And it would also be playoff agony for Coventry as well. They have a far superior goal difference to Hull based on these metrics of their remaining fixtures and how they'd play out, but would still miss out on the top 6 by the skin of their teeth, also finishing with 70 points. And all of this does mean that Norwich will hold on to that place in the top 6 if they're able to match the results of their remaining fixtures with what happened in those games earlier in the season. They'd finish the campaign with 72 points if that was to happen, which based on all of these scenarios would be enough to get them over the line and into the top 6. Norwich on a really good consistent run of form right now. If they can ride that out after this international break, they probably are in the strongest position to make the top 6, especially based on their brilliant home form at Carrow Road of late. I think we can all agree that West Brom have that 5th spot nailed in between now and the end of the season. They've got a reasonable gap between themselves and the sides below them, but also too much ground to make up on the top 4 teams as well. So between now and the end of the season for West Brom, I really think it is a case of gearing up and getting themselves as ready as possible for the playoffs. And do you know what? I know it's always a bit of a cliche saying things like, oh, you know, you won't want to face them in the playoffs or anything like that, but Carlos Corberán in knockout football, I think they'd be a matchup for anyone in the playoffs, I really do. Then to finish in 4th place, it is Southampton. Now, Southampton do have a few games in hand on some of the teams around them. Despite all that, they do have considerably the hardest run-in between now and the end of the campaign. I think that's reflected here by the fact that they will only finish on 88 points if they were to match their results of their remaining fixtures with what happened earlier in the campaign. Bit of a spoiler alert for the top 3 here, but they're the only team within this top 4 that's got less than 96 points, so there really could be a gap that opens up between the top 3 and Southampton. They've still got all of the top 3 sides to play, all of them away from home as well. Listen, crazier things had happened. I'm certainly not discounting them from the top 2 race right now, but it does look more than likely that it will be Southampton in 4th just because of the bit of ground they've lost on the automatic promotion race of late. This is where things get controversial though, because to finish in 3rd place, it would be Leeds United, who are by far and away the form team in the Championship right now. I'd say a lot of people's picks to go on and win the Championship this season, but based on the remaining matches that they've got to play and what happened in those games earlier in the season, they'd finish the campaign with 96 points, which in this scenario wouldn't be enough for automatic promotion. I mean, to finish on 96 points in the first place and not go up automatically, you would be absolutely devastated, but such has been the tale at the top end of the Championship this season, I suppose. Based on what happened in the games that Leeds have got to play earlier in the season, they'd only pick up 14 points in their remaining matches. I'd hazard a guess that in real life, I think they will pick up more points than that, but do you know what? The Championship can be very unpredictable, and despite Leeds on paper having quite a favourable run-in, this just goes to show that, I mean, earlier in the season, they did slip up in quite a few of those fixtures, so it could happen again. And with Leeds missing out on the 2nd spot, that does mean that Ipswich would pip them to automatic promotion, finishing the campaign with a whopping 101 points. And I mean, if the Championship table was to somehow materialise like this come the end of the season, that has to be one of the greatest achievements in Championship history for back-to-back promotions, but to do it in such a style with so many points on the board up against these juggernauts with the finances that they've all got behind them in Leicester, Leeds and Southampton. I mean, what a campaign that would be for Ipswich. They were fancied by a lot of people at the start of the season, but even so, I don't think anyone expected them to be this good. Does have to be said that, I mean, there are definitely some tricky matches on the horizon for Ipswich, but at home especially, I think they've got some very winnable games between now and the end of the campaign. They have shown themselves to be one of those sides as well that once they get the momentum rolling, they just don't slow down, and they've got so many goals in them as well. But based on their remaining fixtures projected for a new Championship points record, it is Leicester City. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of twitchy Leicester fans at the moment with everything going on behind the scenes at the club, the run of form on the pitch as well, which has been quite patchy recently. Leicester have 9 games to play between now and the end of the season, and of those 9 teams that they've still got to play, they beat all of them in the reverse fixture earlier in the season. So based based on that logic, Leicester would pick up 27 points in their remaining matches and finish the season with a whopping 109 points, which would be a new championship record. Can I see that happening in real life? I'm not so sure. I think there will be some slips in there for Leicester as the pressure does get cranked up. They're no longer in this flow state that they were perhaps in earlier in the season when they last played a lot of these sides. But I do still think there's a very good opportunity to pick up over 100 points this season. I just don't think they'll have a flawless run to pick up 109. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. I hope all of that made sense. It was all quite wordy really with how we went ahead and worked out this table, but I thought it would be an interesting one to look into. How feasible do you think that league table is come the end of this season? What shocks do you reckon we'll see in there between now and the end of the campaign? But if you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, make sure to get all your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you all in the next one.